Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'll be discussing about bubble sorting in Java. Okay, it's another sorting technique. So in my previous video you must have seen about the binary search and the linear search, how it works, the two different sorting techniques. Today I'll be telling you how a bubble sort works. Okay, I'll start with very basic, like how it actually works in the background, okay, like in the backend, and how it gives you the output, and then we'll move on to the coding part. Fine. So let me start. So let's take an array. Okay, so bubble sorting is basically applied in an array, like a set of data you have taken in a form of an array. So I'll take a small example. Fine. So okay, let's say I have an array. Okay, and I'll take a smaller array. Fine. So let's say my array elements are, let's say 3, 10, 1, and some 20, okay, and 0. These are my array elements. Fine. 3, 10, 1, 20, and 0. So what happens in uh, bubble sorting is, bubble sorting keeps on checking your array. Okay, it will check this array, so it will sort your array into a ascending order basically. Okay, so if you see over here, it's randomly placed elements inside an array. So it will keep on sorting the elements which are there inside the array unless and until it gets me an ascending order element. Okay, fine. So how it actually does? So it compares and swaps. Two things it does: compare and swap, compare and swap. Okay, so how does it swap? So ascending order means smaller to bigger. Okay, like smaller to bigger is the ascending order. Fine. Now in an array, we remove these. Okay, so now here the array which we have, so in this particular, if you see, so we'll start off with the the element which is 3 inside the array, and then 10. We'll compare these two elements and we will check, since we want to arrange it in ascending order, so we'll check whether 3 is greater than 10 or not. Okay, this we will check off. Fine. So yes, it is greater than 10. Then what will happen? It will swap the position. The position will be swapped. Okay, that way it happens. Fine. So now, but the main thing is, here we are working on a bubble sorting in which the outcome of the array should be a ascending order array. That means our outcome should be somewhat like this, of this particular array which we have used. So if I create another array, and so the sorted element would be something like this: 0, 1, 3, 10, and then 20 would come up. Okay, this would be my bubble sorted array of this array. Okay, but how does it happen? So here it takes the element and compares 3 with 10. First of all, it will compare. So if you see, we have to arrange it in ascending order. So 3 is fine, and because 10 is greater than 3, so now it's fine. So again we'll take another array. Okay, so first of all, the swapping, the first element did not swap. Okay, so here what will be the outcome? So 3 and 10, find my first two elements. Then it will check 10 and 1. So 10 is greater than 1. Yes, it is greater than 1. So what will happen? There will be a swapping between these two. That means 1 will come in the place of 10 and 10 will go in the place of 1. Okay, so what will happen? So here a new array will come up, and the elements here would be 3, then 1, then 10, because now a swapping is happening because it was greater than. Fine, and then 20 and then 0. Okay, now again it will check. So in the bubble sorting, what happens? It starts from the beginning again. Okay, fine. So it will again check. 3 is greater than 1. Yes, it is greater than 1. That means we have to swap. So my next array would be 1, then 3, then 10, then 20, then 0. Okay. Now again if it checks, so it checks 1 and 3. Now it is fine. Now it will check 3 and 10. Then it's also fine. Now it will check 10 and 20. Yes, it is fine. Now again it will check 20 and 0. So now swapping needs to be done because 20 is greater than 0, right? So next, what would be our array? 1, 3, then 10, then 20, sorry, 0, and then 20 will come. Okay, now again it will check. Now what is happening? 1 is less than 3, then it is fine. Now 3 is less than 10, yes, it's fine. Now 10 and 0 will be checked. No, it's not fine because 10 is greater than 0. So again, what would be our next array? So our next array would be 1, 3, 0, 10, and then 20. Okay, now again it will check. So it checks 1 and 3. Yes, it is fine. It checks 3 and 0. No, it's 3 is greater than 0. So again swapping will be done. So our next array would be, how it will look like. So our next array would be 1, 0, then 3, then 10, and then 20 at the last. Okay, now again it will check because there is still the array is not sorted completely. So 1 and 0, yes, 1 is greater than 0, so again there will be a swapping. Next, this array will be 0, 1, 3, 10, and 20. So now if you see this array and this array, so now it is completely sorted, right? So that is how bubble sorting takes place. That means it compares each and every element of the array unless and until you will get a sorted array altogether. That means the array should be in ascending order. That you have to keep in mind. Fine. Now this is understood. Now next thing is, here if you see we have an array, so what things we need to require in our coding? So if you see there is a loop which is going on. So we need a for loop. Okay, we need a for loop for that. Okay, we need a for loop which should, run the loop, and we need a for loop which, swaps the element as well. That means we need a nested for loop. So for I we need, and then for j also we need. So two for loops, an inner for loop and an outer for loop. Two for loop we needs. Okay, we need an element which saves my swapped element. So let's say I take the element as temp, which saves my swapped elements. Okay, right? So these are the necessary things which we need actually. And obviously we have to define a particular array. Let's say the array is ARR. Fine. So two for loops, one temporary element we have to initialize, and then a array we have to define. That's it. And then we have to do the coding for a bubble sorting. Okay. Now let me move on to my BlueJ. Okay. So here the bubble sort, this I've already created a class, so we'll start off with the coding. Fine. So we will start off with public static bubble sort. First of all, the class name. So public static, okay, public class bubble sort. Okay, and inside that, first of all, we'll start off with the coding for the bubble sort, like how you are actually coding it. Okay, so I'll write static, and the name of the method I'll write void, and let's say it is bubble sort. Okay, and inside this I'll initialize the array. So let's say the array is ARR. Okay, And now let's move on to this. Now, as I said, we have to first of all define some elements. So let's say I have a temporary element which will hold my swapping elements. So let's say temp is equal to 0. I have initialized. Then I want to extract the length of the array, so that I run the for loop till the length of the array. So for that, I'll take, let's say, int n as a variable, and in that I'll write arr dot length. Okay, that means arr dot length has the size of the array. Okay, fine. Next comes on to the for loop. So here I'll run the for loop, wherein I'll write int I is equal to 0, I is less than equal to n, which is the length of the array, and then I plus plus. Okay, now inside this for loop, since I said we also have to add a for loop which will help me in swapping the elements, right? So for that I'll write int j, which will start from 1 and it will run till the size of the array minus I. Okay, so that is n minus I, and then j plus plus. Okay, now inside this we'll just have to write the swapping part. So we'll write temp. So first swapping arr, that's my name, so j minus 1. Okay, arr of j, and then at last temp is equal to a of j is equal to temp. Okay, fine. Now I'll just run this particular and we'll check how it is happening. Okay, so let me do something. I'll just copy this off and let me go to my whiteboard, and over here, okay, let me open a new whiteboard. So here we just have, let's say this, and inside this I paste this. Okay, now we just have to run this, how it is working actually. So let's say I have an array of the elements as let's say 2, 10, okay, 1 and 30. These are my array elements. Fine. Now here this array elements, this array is named as arr. Okay, now we have variables, that is temp. Okay, we have variable as I, we have variable as j, we also have arr of j, and we also have arr of j minus 1. Okay, now here if you see, it says temp is equal to arr of j minus 1. That means initially in my loop the j value was 1, I value was 0, temp value was also 0. Okay, now what will happen over here? Temp is equal to arr of j minus 1. That means j minus 1 is, that is 1 minus 1, which means 0. So what was our first element? So if you see this, the first element, let's say in our board, the first element is 0, right? That means now the temp value is 0. Okay, that means 2, whatever the array value is. Okay, next it says arr of j minus 1 is equal to arr of j. That means j value is 1, so 1 minus 1 is 0, so arr of 0, that means 2. So arr of 2 is equal to arr of j. That means j value is 1. So that means arr of 2 is equal to arr of 1. Fine. This particular line of code means this. That means what is happening? Whatever value was there in 1, now it is being swapped to Now whatever value was there at the position of 0 and then the position of 1 will be swapped. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now position 0 will have the value of position 1. That means my new array will look something like this. That is 10, 2, 1 and then 30. Okay. And then it will keep on swapping using this algorithm itself inside my coding. Okay, keeping sure in mind that this if condition which we have provided, this one it satisfies. Okay, so this condition satisfied, not a if condition, it's like n minus I. That means if my array length is suppose 6, then it should run till 5. 6 minus I, that is 5. Yeah, 6 minus 0 is 6. Okay, that way. Fine. So now once you are done with this particular sorting code, after that what you have to do is, so here you have to write public static void main string okay, and then inside this I'll just take the array which I want to swap it using bubble sorting. So I'll take ARR, you can take any variable, and then inside it, let's say take a smaller value, that means let's say 12, 1, 30, 10. Okay, so if you swap this particular array using a bubble sorting technique, then what should be your output? Your output should be 1, then 10, then 12, and then 30. This should be your output. Okay, 1, 10, 12, 30 should be your output. Okay, now you have initialized the array. Now once the initialization is done, what you have to do, you have to call this particular method so that this particular code of bubble sorting is executed when you have initialized the array and you are trying to print a new array. Okay, so here we will just call the method which is bubble sort. So bubble sort, and then inside the bubble sort just write the array name, that is ARR. That's it. And next to it just write system dot println and array after sorting. Okay, and then for printing the array you have to do the for loop. So for I is equal to 0, I less than ARR dot length, and then I plus plus 9, and inside this just print the array dot println and array of I, and I'll give a space so that after each number it gives me a space as well. Okay, done. Just check off the arrays. We have to close one more so that my class is closed. Done. Now just see over here, we have a method that is bubble sort, inside which I have just written the code which will help me actually swap the elements in my array and then perform the sorting and give me a sorted array. Okay, and inside this particular, so same class we have one method which is bubble sort, and inside this I am just trying to print my array after sorting. Okay, so basically here I am initializing an array which has the array elements as 12, 1, 30 and 10, and then I am calling the method bubble sort with the parameter ARR. That means this is the bubble sort method which I have defined over here in the class, and then this is the coding which will get executed after this one. Okay, that means right after this line Java will execute this particular code. Okay, so once this particular code executes, that means Java will understand that I am trying to call the method which is this one. So it will get into this method and it will execute this, and it will swap the array for me. Now the array is swapped, but you want to see what are the swap elements, right? So for that you have to run a for loop and then just print out the array. Okay, over here just write int. Fine. Now let's compile this. So it's compiled, no syntax error. Let me just open off the, okay, bubble sort. This is the one, and let me check the output. Now if you see the output, okay, let me clear it and check it again. Okay, now if you see the output, array after sorting, so we have this, right? So just make sure that you have proper spacing and everything so that you get the correct output. Yeah, now things looks good. Okay, let's quickly compile this off again and then try to check. So 12, 1, 30, 10. So the output should be 1, 10, 12, and 30. Okay, class is compiled. Minimize this off. Just open this. Okay, now if you see, the output is 1, 10, 12, 30. That means that is the sorted array which we wanted using our bubble sort. Okay, sorted from ascending order, that is 1, 10, 12, and then 30.